And we're live.
Hello, world. Screw it.
Hope everybody is doing well this evening. Did you lose the script? We're giving our friends with the Vibe Radio Network just a moment to check in with us. Well, I find the script. Haha.
I just closed the app, that's all. What? And Nico's trying to attack for being nice.
So you'll notice we have a change of surroundings this evening.
Hi, Roberta.
Yeah. Yeah, good evening.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
And everybody drink.
Yeah, and we got everybody here with us now. So, yeah, it's
been a cray-cray few weeks.
It has. And we got crazy cats all around us here.
The boys are showing off because they're going to be 1 year old next week.
Yes.
And they're in a mood. And Yuna's trying to control them, so she's in a mood. And Lulu's just watching.
Oh boy. And
We mentioned they were in a mood.
there you go. Good times.
Give Lulu a whistle. So she can referee.
All right. So yeah, let's see. What do we got going on?
We're finally getting a pub crawl off that was our first one canceled due to COVID, and they finally get to go.
Yes. So yes, 2 years delayed, but we are taking this group out on a pub crawl on Wednesday night. We're gonna go catch a squirrels game on Thursday night,
Double woo.
and then we got tours again all weekend. So
Triple woo.
yes, good times. Good times to be had by all.
And
But
we're
yes,
getting back to our normal schedule.
yes, we are getting closer to the normal schedule, and yeah, things are heating up. Obviously, we ditched the fireplace because, well, we're not sitting in front of a fireplace when it's 80 degrees out. And as the weather warms up, of course, this is the time of year when people really start to think about going to amusement parks.
So that's our stories tonight.
Particularly the seasonal ones. So, of course, you got the big ones, Disney, Universal, stuff like that. They're open all year round, and good for them. They have the weather to do that. But places like Busch Gardens down the road, they're
Cedar Point,
Yep.
Hershey, all those.
Yep.
Six Flags. Not all the Six Flags. Some of the Six Flags.
depends on where you are exactly. But yeah, so when you go to these places, you don't necessarily think about
Paranormal. You think
Paranormal
about
stuff.
screaming your head off while you're on a roller coaster.
yeah. Oh, I get to read the
Get to
introduction.
go.
You always give me the introduction. Not that I mind. So. But yeah, so anyways, many theme parks across the United States participate in some sort of spooky fun in the weeks leading up to Halloween. Busch Gardens, just down the road, has Hallow Scream, Universal Studios has Halloween Horror Nights, and the list goes on. But many of these fantastical playgrounds have more than just these staged scares to send a little chill down your spine, and they certainly don't limit themselves to the Halloween season. Over the years, some people have had encounters of the paranormal kind at theme parks all across the country. And as a matter of fact, so many of these incidents have happened that tonight's show is just part one of what we have for you to share on the subject. So if you don't hear about your favorite theme park tonight, just join us again in 2 weeks as we share part 2.
I was busy with this
Yes.
one.
And there may even be a part 3 at some point down the line. But in the meantime, we are going to go ahead and dive into our first stop tonight.
Yes, so this is
We're gonna go with
family
one-
favorite.
Going to go with one of the big ones right out of the gate.
Which Chris and I will be at in 2 years because a certain sister of mine has a big birthday, and this is what she wants to do. So Disneyland, woo! Here we go. Of course, plenty of California amusement parks are out there, but the House of the Mouse is definitely one of the most popular. Of course, we're referring to the world-renowned Disneyland. And one of the most well-known attractions there is, of course, the famous Haunted Mansion. Folks who visit this attraction can enjoy the spooky details and cast members within the house. But aside from this classic and intentionally spooky site, Disneyland is home to a shockingly high number of ghost and other worldly entities. Paranormal encounters have been nearly constant since the theme park's opening in 1955. The source of these spirits is likely some of the millions of people who have visited over the years and decided they never wanted to go home. Since opening day, over 2 billion guests have been to the happiest place on Earth. With the sheer volume of people, it's no wonder why the place is a hotbed of psychic energy. Possibly adding the fuel to the fire is the fact that it's become common for families to try to scatter their ashes of the loved ones in the park at their one-time favorite attractions. Now, I do say try, because if you are caught doing this, you are escorted off property and you are banned for life. Just to warn you, don't do it.
It's very much frowned upon.
And especially in the Haunted Mansion, they actually vacuum the thing every night because people do this.
So unless you want your loved one's ashes winding up
In the trash?
in the trash,
Don't
do
do
it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a macabre practice, and it's understandable to a point. That said, not encouraged by Disney. We don't encourage it at all, so don't do it. It's considered a potential health risk, it's a cleanliness issue, and it's, of course, turned Disneyland into one of the most ghost-ridden places in California. Let's start with Main Street. Along Main Street, USA, as you enter Disneyland, you may encounter a particularly helpful ghost known as the Woman in White. According to the stories, she helps lost children find Disneyland Baby Care Center, where they can be reunited with their parents. Many children who seemingly wander into the care center on their own have told of this same kind woman time and time again. But when the adults step outside to offer thanks for her assistance, the Woman in White is never to be found.
Friendly ghost.
Yes. Space Mountain. It's not just the technolights that you're seeing that way. As you move past Main Street and turn right, you'll find yourself entering Tomorrowland. And of course, the enduringly popular Space Mountain resides here. There are warnings abound discouraging those with health issues from partaking in this ride. And it may be that the spirit of one known as Mr. One Way dismissed these warnings and indulged himself with some sort of heart-stopping thrills all the same. It's believed Mr. One Way was once a part guest like any other who stepped onto Space Mountain and died during the ride. Today he appears as a red-haired man who will board any car with a single passenger and then disappear in all the commotion of the trip. Security cameras never show Mr. One Way, but numerous guests have frantically reported a man who boarded the ride with them but never came out on the other side. He is also occasionally spotted in the cast member locker room. A second ghost is there as well, known as Disco Debbie. Now she hangs out in Space Mountain, apparently earning her name by glowing vividly in the dark.
Sounds like fun. If I'm going to come back, it better be in some sort of spectacular fashion like that. Might as well keep it fun.
I'm not going to read this one. This one's all him. Because I hate this ride.
Oh,
I
yes.
hate this ride.
Most people do.
It's a classic, but I hate it.
It's one that people love to hate. So, we hesitate to even mention this
It's
one.
an earworm.
Yeah.
Let me just say that.
Yeah,
It's an
and you
earworm.
probably know what's coming at this point. The memorable soundtrack has been known to drive people to madness. Of course.
It's a small world and
Why did you have to start that? You didn't have to do that. I wasn't going to sing it. Why did you have to sing it? You started singing it. It's a small world. Yes. So, anyways, over and over, day in and day out, the dolls drone on without end. At least not until the lights shut off at the end of the night. Some Disneyland employees, though, have reported that the fun doesn't even stop then. Apparently, the dolls will sometimes move and sing in the middle of the night of their own volition. Cast members believe that they are inhabited by the spirits of their deceased predecessors. Now, some investigators have written this off, though, as reality butting heads with the human tendency to attribute shadowy but real figures to the paranormal. It turns out that even after the lights shut off, the dolls at It's a Small World don't stop moving. They intentionally keep these sensitive animatronics running 24 hours a day, as shutting them down runs the risk of air getting into the hydraulic lines or having joints seize up. So while the dolls do move after dark, it's likely not due to undead possession.
Sorry, no haunted creepy dolls here. They're just creepy.
As far as the songs and all that, though, I don't necessarily know if they do the soundtrack all night long. So if
I doubt it. So if you're hearing something, there might be something
yeah,
there.
if you're hearing something in the dark, it might be something up there.
Although they have recently said that they're going to put Encanto in It's a Small World for a little bit, doing projections, apparently.
Yes.
So I might write it just to see how they do that. I'm not going to be there anytime soon to see that, though. It's only like a few months that they're doing this.
We'll see. Maybe they're looking for the, possibly, hopefully looking for the eventual replacement to, we won't say its name again.
That might be sacrilege, but maybe.
Anyways.
Okay, let's go back to the Haunted Mansion. You know, the place where the ghosts are supposed to be, even though a lot of them are projections and really cool, by the way.
They are.
They
I
are
love
awesome.
the Haunted Mansion.
Oh god, that is the only thing I would like go to Magic Kingdom to ride.
It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal attraction, and it's amazing like how far ahead of its time it was.
Yeah.
They just.
But let's talk about the original one
Yeah.
first before we jump to Florida. That's next week, by the way. We're going to do Disney World next week.
Yeah. We got
So.
Disneyland this week, Disney World in 2 weeks, but we have a whole lot more to share tonight too.
All right, so back to New Orleans Square, where we have the Haunted Mansion. The construction on the Haunted Mansion started in 1963, and the story goes that one of the first test guests was so scared that she died of a heart attack inside the mansion. Her death, legend has it, led to the closing of the mansion and the construction until 1969. With a beginning like this, it's little surprise that the Haunted Mansion is generally haunted. Besides the animatronics, it has become the home to a ghost of an airline pilot who crashed his small plane into a lake near the future park site in the 1940s. Park employees patrolling the ride after shutdown have seen him walking with a cane around the loading area where visitors board the ride. He has also made some appearances during the operating hours, walking through walls right in front of the guests. Those who have dared to approach the man claim he coughs up blood everywhere. Another spirit that employees have noticed is the man in the tuxedo. He first appeared to an attendant where passengers embark for the ride. The employee repeatedly noticed a shadow in the mirror that is placed so that she can see the riders approaching from behind her. However, there's no one there every time she turned around. As she looked closely in the mirror, she noticed the shadow wore a tuxedo, but couldn't see beyond it in the mirror. All of a sudden, she felt a chill and a hand placed on her shoulder, and that's when she ran out of the Haunted Mansion and quit Disneyland altogether. Many others have reported seeing an apparition of a crying boy near the exit of the Haunted Mansion. According to Disneyland's urban legends, against the advice of several psychic advisors, his mother was adamant on scattering her younger son's ashes inside this spooky attraction. Though officials forbade her, she somehow snuck in with the ashes and scattered them secretly. Unfortunately, this is not her son's last wish, and that's why he's down there crying to be free. Ghosts aside, there have been many paranormal activities at the Haunted Mansion. The Seance Circle has especially spooked many employees since they started creating it. In fact, the sound designer who set up the equipment in the area before it opened to the public swore that he heard music playing behind one of the new walls. At the time, he believed a radio had been accidentally walled up there. However, he started panicking when the music never ended and no radio announcer came on. After failing to find the source of the sound, he instead placed a speaker in the area to drown it out. Practical. So the next time you're there, don't think that everything that you see is a prop. There's a chance you might actually be seeing a real ghost who's decided to welcome you personally to the haunted house. Any questions?
No questions. Lots of people loving on the Haunted Mansion.
And again, our favorite place.
And Trina's back.
Yay, Trina! Welcome back. Alright, so let's go to some other experiences across the park. In June of 1966, a teenager named Thomas Guy Cleveland tried to gain unauthorized access to Disneyland for grad night by climbing a fence and crossing the monorail track. When he was spotted by a security guard, Thomas ran, but he was struck and killed by a monorail train. It's said that the ghost of Thomas can be seen at night running alongside the monorail train. In 1984, a woman named Dolly Young was killed when she was thrown from the bobsled on the Matterhorn. Since her death, cast members who are required to walk the tracks when the ride shuts down say they can hear her. Some cast members call the section of track where Dolly died Dolly's Dip. In June of 1973, two brothers stayed on Tom Sawyer's Island after the park closed. They tried to escape the island by swimming across the rivers of America. Unfortunately, the older brother, Bowden, drowned, and cast members report seeing a ghost rippling in the water trying to make the crossing still. In 1967, a teenager named Ricky Lee Yama was killed on the People Mover ride. Legend has it that his ghost haunts Tomorrowland, even though the People Mover closed in 1995. The ghost reportedly grabs the hair of blonde-haired guests. So those of you with blonde hair, just beware. How you doing, buddy? Now let's come to the most famous ghost of all at Disneyland. I mean, Walt Disney put his heart and soul into this theme park, and it's no surprise that he's still there. We're going to go, of course, to the Disneyland Fire Department building out on the main area, the Main Street area. This is just inside the entrance of the park, and when the Maestro himself, Walt Disney, was actually in the park, in the residence of his apartment there, he would always leave a light on to let the employees know that he's on site. Well, that actually continues to this day. When the light in the window appears, or it actually appears that it's always on, and that is said to be a tribute to him, because every night a cast member used to turn that light off. Problem is, when they would turn that light off, leave the building, look up to the window when they would get outside, and they see the light back on again. So they go back in, turn it on, turn it off, go back outside, look up the window, it's on again. By the time the third time this happened, the cast member went back inside to turn it off, and when he reached for the lamp, he heard a very distinct voice say, "I'm still here." Ever since then, the light has stayed on. Except for, of course, when they're changing the light bulb. Now, that's not the only place that Walt is known to be at. Of course, he likes to wander around and make sure that his park is still being properly cared for. He's felt in his office behind the magic shop. He's been known to enjoy the occasional date with his dead wife Lillian, and they are seen in the gallery above the Pirates of the Caribbean. His disembodied voice will tell maintenance workers to be quiet or get out if he wants alone time there, especially when he's thinking that they're disturbing his work. Many people visit Disneyland every day of the year, and it's hard to imagine that any of these ghosts present any sort of real danger. Just go enjoy yourself there. Keep a lookout for a few extra guests that may have overstayed their welcome. After all, they're in the happiest place on earth.
What was the name of the book, the fiction book about haunting?
Just look up guy's name.
Yeah.
I am blanking.
So, we mentioned this gentleman before, Guy Hutchinson. Met him a few weeks back at GalaxyCon when I was here in Richmond. He's been coming to
a ghost memoir. Ghost memoirs.
Ghost memoirs. Now, yes, he is kind of an expert on theme park.
He does a podcast on theme parks and especially Disneyland. Heck, he researched a bippity boppity boozy book, drinking around Disneyland and Disney World.
Yep. But he also had a little fun with writing a fictional book about a couple of kind of hapless cast members who died while they were driving around, and then they decided, since they had nothing better to do, that they would go back and haunt Disney. So that is called Ghost Memoirs, Disney After Death. So if you're interested in a little
fictional version of this,
fictional fun of it, Guy wrote a book on that.
I did find a gentleman who actually researched a lot of the Disney legends and ghost stories. His book, however, it costs like $75. It is a hand-bound book, so it's a very unique creation of art, basically. Not in my budget right now, as much as I would have loved to have gotten it if I could have found it.
Yeah.
Because it is such a rare item. Maybe one day I'll find it.
Maybe. Perhaps.
Perhaps.
My turn?
Your turn. We're sticking in California for right now.
Yep.
There's a lot of haunted amusement parks in California, by the way.
There's
a lot.
Yeah, well. So, yeah, we're not going to go too far. It's a short drive to the north to the small town of Valencia. And this is Valencia hosts Six Flags Magic Mountain, which has been known for having some of the most thrilling rides on the West Coast. Stretched over 262 acres, Magic Mountain opened for business on May 29, 1971, and was sold to Six Flags in 1979, who has operated the park ever since. This popular amusement park outside LA has had a number of firsts in the roller coaster industry. It was home to the first looping roller coaster and the first roller coaster to go over 100 miles an hour, among other things. Many of its visitors and staff members have remained faithful to it in both life and death. During the spooky season, Magic Mountain puts on its annual Fright Fest celebration. Guests who splurge on a VIP experience will get a tour guide that leads them around the park and may share some stories along the way. One of the stories that has been shared is about the spirit of a young boy with dark hair wearing a blue shirt. His name is Jacob, and before he passed away from a terminal blood disease, he loved visiting the park. Unfortunately, he was confined to a wheelchair during the last few months of his life, making riding most of the park's rides impossible. However, in death, Jacob is free to ride whatever he chooses. Ride operators have reported seeing Jacob out of the corner of their eye during closing, so they always make sure to run the ride empty one last time for him before shutting it down for the night.
I love employees like that.
Aside from his penchant for thrill rides, Jacob seems to love games as well, and another spot he frequents is the old Cyclone Bay area. This area, which is home to all the carnival games, is another favorite spot of the young boy, and he has been seen multiple times underneath the tarp to the basketball game. Staff have reported seeing the boy in the striped shirt reaching under the tarp area as if trying to get his basketball. At times, the boy isn't seen, but instead, staff will find a lone basketball left out, knowing that they had just put everything away and cleaned up for the evening. It was also in this area where a security guard encountered Jacob late at night. The guard yelled out to the kid, but when he didn't respond, the security guard approached him to tell him that the park was closed and he needed to leave. However, before the security guard could crouch down and lecture the boy disappeared. He asked a games attendant who was shutting down for the evening where the boy had gone, and the attendant had to break it to him that the boy was not just a ghost, but one that was seen in the area quite often. Aside from Jacob, Magic Mountain has amassed more than a few ghost stories in its half-century of delighting guests. The Colossus is a wood and steel coaster that opened in 1978. This ride is still thrilling guests today, but it is also unfortunately the site of one of the park's approximately 8 deaths. A young woman named Carol Flores was at the park the day after Christmas in 1978, the year the Colossus opened. Carol's restraint didn't fit properly and her lap bar failed to lock, leading to her untimely and tragic death from being thrown from the car. Today, maintenance workers report that they can sometimes hear her walking around inside the tunnel where she died on the ride. They hear it even if they hold perfectly still and nobody else is around. The ride did undergo renovations shortly after the accident, and in 2015, the track was converted to steel, with the coaster opening under the new name, the Twisted Colossus. Then there is the roller coaster named Goliath. Goliath is an extreme steel coaster with an opening drop of 255 feet. The coaster opened for the 2000 season, but a year later would be the location of an untimely death. On June 2, 2001, 28-year-old Pearl Santos suffered an aneurysm while riding Goliath. Since her death, staff members have reported weird issues with Goliath's phone system. Security guards monitoring the park from the security office will receive phone calls coming from Goliath's line, well after the last visitor and ride operator has left for the day. When they answer, there is nothing but static on the other end. This happened so often that a group of officers set out one night to investigate who was playing around and trying to scare them. To their surprise, nothing out of the ordinary was found, aside from an eerie sense of dread, leading many to believe that Pearl haunts the place where she died, getting people's attention by interfering with the phone lines. Also at Magic Mountain is Revolution, a coaster that originally opened in 1976 and then underwent a major renovation in 2016. The renovation added things such as virtual reality experience to the ride, and riders of the looping coaster have reported hearing a woman's hysterical screams shortly before before arriving back at the station after their ride. This may be a residual haunting associated with another tragic accident that happened at the ride over 25 years ago. On May 30th, 1995, a part-time employee named Sherry Lamont was crossing the tracks in order to switch positions with another employee. Unfortunately, as she stepped onto the tracks, she was hit by a car coming into the station and thrown below the ride, fatally injuring her. Many believe that the unexplained screams are those of Sherry, or perhaps those of the numerous witnesses who were there for the grisly event. Tragic events and hauntings aside, Magic Mountain has been bringing delight to generations of visitors for over half a century. Just take these tales as a reminder that risk can lie in wait in the most joyous of places, and spirits can reside in some of the most unassuming spaces.
Did you realize you rhymed there?
Nope, didn't mean to. I'm good like that.
All right, another park I want to get back to. I've been to it, Chris has never been, and that is Cedar Point. This is one of the most celebrated coaster parks in the world. On a spit of land jutting out onto Lake Erie is Cedar Point. It's the second oldest amusement park in North America, with a history dating back to 1870. It all started with an advertisement in a newspaper calling on some enterprising person to utilize the magnificent beach on the lake of Cedar Point, and it was answered by local businessman Louis Zistel. Zistel opened a small beer garden, bathhouse, and dance floor on the peninsula. He would then bring guests over on his steamboat, the Young Reindeer, for 25 cents. In 1892, the park's first roller coaster was the Switchback Railway. It was 25 feet tall and reached a speed of 10 miles per hour, which was amazing for the time period. The oldest coaster still running in the park today is the Blue Streak. It opened in 1964. Now today, Cedar Point boasts 70 rides, including 17 roller coasters, plus enough shows and games to keep you busy there for 4 days. It also has a water park, by the way. With such a long and celebrated history of entertainment, it's a little surprised that some people might be inclined to spend some more time here after they have otherwise shuffled off their mortal toil. It appears that the most well-known haunt of the park is the Midway Carousel. This is one of those few remaining famous DC Moeller Brothers carousels in the world. Originally built in 1912 for the Revere Beach in Massachusetts, the Midway Carousel was moved to Cedar Point in 1946. It's the oldest operating ride at the park, and it has been listed on the National Register of Historic Places in the United States since 1982. Employees report hearing the carousel music playing at night while the carousel spins backwards. They have also reported leaving at night and arriving the next morning to find some of the horses in different locations. There are legends that are said to be associated with this carousel that may or may not be related to some of the bizarre occurrences on the ride today. The most prominent legend is that of the man who carved the horses for the carousel. Well, he kind of caught his wife in a compromising position with a jockey from the local track. Let's just say it didn't end well.
Yep. In classic, stereotypical, jilted lover fashion.
He shot them both.
Yeah, he shot them both.
Yeah. Then he apparently carved a couple of the horses for the carousel. There's a black horse with a bone carved into him, and another horse with the face of a jockey carved into the saddle. Could the negative energy from this experience be reflected in the work of the carver? We can't say for sure, but it's safe to say we've heard stranger things. I mean, you put your energy and your work into your creation. If you're a little ticked off when you start carving,
Yep.
Yeah, it kind of resonates.
You know, I do kind of want to throw the other thing back in here real quick. As a cautionary tale.
This is a legend we came across. It doesn't add up timeline-wise with history, but is a legend that is out there if you actually search Haunted Cedar Point.
Yeah, so I did actually delete this from the script because I did a little research and I'm like, this sounds a little weird. Obviously, you know, Cedar Point, it's not necessarily close, but it's not too far from Chicago.
Yeah.
Now, of course, Cedar Point was there when Al Capone was basically the mob king and, you know, mob boss in Chicago.
And who says that he didn't maybe pop over there? We don't
Yeah.
know for sure. There's no record.
Yeah, but there was a legend that Al Capone tortured people on the carousel at Cedar Point before throwing their bodies into the lake right nearby. Well, digging
This is
into
where
it a
the
little bit,
timeline doesn't.
this is where the timeline doesn't add up. The carousel, while being built originally back in 1912, wasn't moved to Cedar Point until 1946. By this point in his life, Al Capone was gravely ill from a, let's just say, a little disease.
A transmitted disease that's actually running rampant these days.
Yeah, and if you let it go untreated, it actually eats your brain. So by the time we get to 1946, Al Capone passes away in 1947. 1946, he's receiving medical treatment down in Florida and basically has the mentality of about a 12-year-old. So he was far from being a mob boss who is
Torturing people on a carousel and then dumping bodies in the lake.
Yes.
It's not to say that maybe he wasn't in Massachusetts,
Which
where
is,
this carousel originally was located, but that's not near a lake.
Yeah. It was
It was by the ocean.
Yeah, the carousel was originally located at a place called Reeves Beach in Massachusetts. So, I don't know, maybe if Al Capone decided to vacation at Reeves Beach, but
Possible.
it seemed
I'm
like
sure they had gangster conventions,
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it'd be an interesting story, but you kind of need to take some of these things with a grain of salt.
Yeah, it's an interesting legend that has popped up somewhere.
Yep.
Alright, but let's get back to the actual ghosts that are there. So the Midway Carousel is not the only thing in the park that was designed by Daniel Moeller. Apparently the carousel that formerly sat in the park's Frontierland was a 1921 Denzel carousel, and it had horses carved by Moeller. Moeller's carousel horse, also known as the military horse, is said to have been the only haunted carousel horse in existence. So who would haunt a carousel horse? In this case, it's actually believed to be Daniel's wife, Mrs. Moeller. She fell in love with the horse after her husband had carved it, and allegedly that love was so strong that her ghost wouldn't let anybody photograph it. And when the horse was on display, the staff reported seeing her riding the horse after the park had been closed. Unfortunately, the original Moeller horse got removed and put away in storage. The carousel that the horse used to be part of got moved to Dorney Park in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Of course, minus this one horse that's now in storage. You can see a replica of this horse at the Merry-Go-Round Museum in Sandusky, Ohio, and it's said that people can hear Mrs. Moeller walking around the place at night admiring the replica. Alright, so Cedar Point, like all good theme parks, has a hotel near it.
Yeah.
And this is known as Hotel Breakers. It first opened in 1905, and it provides a cozy place to stay with premier access to all the excitement at Cedar Point. It has 600 rooms, and it is one of the largest hotels in the Midwest. In 2015, of course, those 600 rooms got completely refurbished, and it has all of your modern creature comforts now. The hotel actually has 4 different sections of it, because they were all built in different times, adding on as need was there. There are a few, of course, reported hauntings. The first is arguably the most well-known. It occurs in a part of the hotel known as the lobby. This is a 2-story structure that houses offices, meeting rooms on the first floor, and of course employee dwellings on the second floor. In the earliest days, the current employee rooms were actually guest rooms. And in room 169, a guest named Mary allegedly hanged herself out of despair for her lover. Since then, employees and guests have reported odd occurrences, disturbances, violent unseen actions, noises, problems with electronics, and many other things. They've also reported hearing crying and their shower turning on and off well, apparently Mary doesn't necessarily want you in her old shower. The hotel also has a haunted balcony where a couple apparently made a suicide pact. It said that uncertain circumstances were going to lead the man and the woman into being separated, and that they would rather die than be without one another. When the moment came for the two to leap from the balcony into the great beyond, the man jumped to his death, but the woman reconsidered and lifted herself back to safety. In the years since, the women in the room need to be vigilant about their surroundings and emotions, as many have reported a strong pull towards the balcony where the man is still trying to pull a companion off the ledge into the ever after with him. Hotel Breakers Ballroom may also have some phenomenon that could be pulled straight from the pages of The Shining. Yeah, we're going to talk about mysterious music, ghostly dancers that like to show a party scene from a generation past.
Yeah. So, similar, kind of the party that happens in The Shining, but less all the blood. And not necessarily quite as horrifying.
No, here comes Johnny with an axe.
No.
So, when are we leaving? After we break up a cat fight, apparently?
Yep. There's hissing in the hallway, if you did not hear
I'm
that.
going to pass this to Chris, and I'm going to go check that real fast.
But,
Excuse me.
Patrick pointed out that Cedar Point is owned by the same company that owns King's Dominion.
Yes.
Yeah, so I forgot about that. So there is that little connection there.
Are we done?
They're not done. You know they're not done. The cats are spicy tonight. And Alex pointed out that I need a refill.
I'll bring in the original spicy one. Say hi to everybody.
You say hi, Una? She's like, no.
No, I'm not done fighting with my brother yet. Like a whistle?
Told you I'd wind up having some of hers.
I have to be up at 5:30 tomorrow. Maybe this will help me sleep tonight.
Here's hoping.
Anybody else having trouble sleeping lately?
Yeah.
It's the heat. It's
Yeah,
gotta be the heat.
It's the heat. It's warming up. So our next stop, we are going to hit our second Six Flags park for the night.
And this is the OG Six Flags, by the
Yeah,
way.
so we are going to dive deep into the heart of Texas.
Which is why I've never been to this one.
Yep. In 1959, Texas real estate developer Angus G. Wynn Jr. took a fateful trip to Disneyland. He returned home inspired by his experience and convinced that his home state deserved a theme park destination of their own. With the help of local corporations and some New York investors who wanted in on the theme park game, Wynn secured the funding necessary to build a theme park of his own. In August of 1960, groundbreaking began for Six Flags Over Texas. The name was based on the state's history under the flags of 6 different nations: Spain, France, Mexico, the Republic of Texas, the Confederate States of America, and of course, the United States of America.
Did not know that, by the way, before I researched this.
So, with 6 different sections of the park, each one dedicated to these different eras of Texas's past. Opening in 1961 for a season of only 45 days, Six Flags Over Texas was an overnight sensation, hosting more than 500,000 guests in its first season. As the first amusement park to institute a pay-one-price admission rather than ticket booths of their competitors, Six Flags set themselves apart and ensured a long, fruitful history to come.
So we can thank them for that.
Yes. Thankfully, when you show up at the park, you don't have to go and buy your tickets for every single ride and attraction. Yep. So, in the decades that followed, Six Flags Over Texas would add more attractions, including a few first-of-their-kind rides that would later become theme park staples. El Aserradero was the first ever log flume ride, while the Runaway Mine Train became the first mine train ride in America. In the decades that followed, Six Flags would evolve, going through ownership changes, adding new attractions, and retiring old ones, and always growing its fan base. Still going strong after more than 60 years of operations, Six Flags Over Texas is a top-notch vacation destination that's fun for the whole family, which is not to say that it doesn't have its dark side. As with any place with a high density of high-tech machines, a long history of operations, and millions of people passing through every year, Six Flags Over Texas has had its fair share of accidents. Most of them, thankfully, have only resulted in minor injuries, but a handful have resulted in people meeting their ends. In 1968, ride attendant John Raymond Nielsen accidentally lost his balance and plunged to his death while loading the El Sombrero attraction. In 1999, a 29-year-old Arkansas woman died on a river rafting ride when flotation cells raft spontaneously deflated and ride machinery flipped the raft over.
That one frightens me, by the way.
In 2011, a 64-year-old woman was found unresponsive in a lazy river at the park's Hurricane Harbor Water Park, and despite being rushed to the hospital, was declared dead from drowning. In 2013, a 52-year-old woman fell from the new Texas Giant roller coaster after a malfunction from her seat restraint. Though these incidents may add a dark pall over an otherwise bright and sunny theme park, they are isolated, random incidents that are not the norm for Six Flags, nor for any other reputable theme park that safely operates year in and year out across the country. Six Flags Over Texas undergoes rigorous safety reviews that help keep it one of America's most popular theme park destinations. That said, the exceedingly rare and tragic events that have occurred are believed to have left an indelible psychic imprint on the park, alongside some whose happier memories may have them returning of their own deep-seated desire to have one last thrill at the park. While various specters have been reported all across the landscape of Six Flags Over Texas in its many years of operation, many of them tied back into the previously mentioned tragic tales. There is one spirit here that has appeared to many people time and again over the years. Now, one of the park's natural features is Johnson Creek, which runs right through the middle of the destination's landscape. It's believed that Annie, a young girl who drowned in Johnson Creek during the early 1900s, wanders the park's historic yellow house, known as the Candy House, in the Texas section of the park. The Candy House is near the Texas Giant roller coaster entrance, and Annie's spirit is said to be a generally friendly and mischievous spirit that hangs out in the area. She is known to flicker the lights of her house off and on periodically, and she will also sometimes unlock the front door of the yellow house after employees lock it up behind themselves. The upstairs bedroom curtains will also open and close on their own, activity that has also been attributed to Annie. Though Annie usually keeps a low profile and doesn't interfere with park guests, she has sometimes appeared to them in the darkness of the mine train attraction. She has also been seen wandering the parking lot, but when visitors offer to help her find her parents, Annie will lead them into the woods and disappears. It never hurts to be polite to a friendly spirit, so if you ever find yourself by the Candy House at Six Flags, make sure you give Annie a wave and a warm hello.
Alright, now this is the bunch we wish we had researched before we went on our last Universal trip, because we didn't go in this building. We did not go on this ride.
Not this time. The first time we did.
No, we didn't. We didn't do Shrek at all.
Never?
We did Minions.
Okay.
Yeah, we did not do Shrek at all. And Shrek is now closed. So we're popping down to Universal, thus Chris's shirt and my leggings, because Harry Potter World.
Yes, I said it. Death Eater shirt. No, it's Azkaban.
Azkaban.
I was a prisoner at Azkaban.
Approach. No, don't approach.
Do not approach. Don't approach.
Yeah, the fun thing was when we first went to Universal, it was my first time. Chris had been there before, but not to Harry Potter World.
It was many years before.
Yeah. And so when we're going through Harry Potter, I'm playing with the wand and making all the cool things happen. I'm like, hey, what house are you? He goes, I don't know. So I made him take a quiz right then and there. Of course, he's a Slytherin.
Through and through.
That's okay. I'm a Gryffindor. I'm half Gryffindor, half Ravenclaw.
Be interesting to see where the Sorting Hat would actually put you at
Yeah,
the
I
end of the day.
know. Probably in Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
Anyway, so for many years, of course, one of the finest attractions that you would find as you entered into the park, as we mentioned, is the Shrek 4D attraction. It was created in 2003 after the smashing success of the Shrek movie in 2001. The attraction entertained millions of guests for almost 19 years before recently closing on January 10th of this year. As the attraction has been dismantled to make space for something new, guests have been able to purchase remnants of the former attraction to take home as mementos. Temporary vacancy aside, it seems that the building that housed the Shrek 4D ride and will hopefully host something new one day may just be haunted. You see, Shrek 4D wasn't the first attraction in this building. That distinction actually goes to Alfred Hitchcock. Yes, the Alfred Hitchcock.
Is there another Alfred Hitchcock?
No, but he is the Alfred Hitchcock.
I wonder. There's got to be somebody else out there in the world
Probably.
today named
Somebody
Alfred
probably
Hitchcock.
named it after their favorite horror person.
I kind of feel sorry for the guy. You're never going to live up to Alfred Hitchcock. I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry. No.
Anyway, but
Anyways.
it was known as Alfred Hitchcock, The Art of Making Movies. And it actually opened up in 1990 when the Universal Studios first opened up. It was a 3D feature where guests got to see Hitchcock's greatest scares come to life. It had real sets that were recreated for the guests to actually explore, and had a pre-show which featured Anthony Perkins from Psycho, who walked the guests through the famous shower scene in the movie. I would have loved to have seen this ride. It should still be there, by the way. It should still be there, Universal. Bring it back.
At least they still do have
The monster makeup.
the monster makeup,
Yeah.
which is fun.
Which is very fun. Anyway, if the stories are to be believed, that something was brought over for this ride, and Alfred Hitchcock might have hitched a ride with it. That being, of course, Hitchcock decided that he was drawn to the resort as Psycho 4 was actually filmed on the lot.
So, a couple of different things could happen there.
Yeah. Now, this was filmed in 1990, and it was the same year, as I said, the park opened. Over the years, staff and guests alike have claimed to have a run-in with the macabre movie maker even after the exhibit was replaced with Shrek. The run-ins included staff members who were working in one particular theater space, and after seeing Hitchcock in the theater, the doors slammed shut, the lights shut off in their own accord, and the event gave the staffer a scare that was very Hitchcockian. In his life, Hitchcock was noted for his often fierce determination to get things just as he wanted them. That's not to say that he was an off-putting individual or that he made a habit of being rude. Quite the contrary, he collaborated with some of the biggest names in Hollywood at the time and produced some amazing works, although several of them said he was horrid to work with at times because he wanted it just right.
He could also be a cruel prankster from time to time
Yeah.
as well.
He was not somebody you would want to cross or betray, however, and it would be fair to say that Hitchcock may have felt betrayed at the replacement of his attraction of the animated ogre. Staff members recall multiple occasions where a brush with Hitchcock was quickly followed by a malfunction of the Shrek ride. Animatronics would activate or move on their own volition. Even entire theaters would black out without explanation. There was often a certain seat in the back row that wouldn't work quite right. It actually led the staff to bar it off and say, "That's Hitchcock's seat." The staff learned that it was in everybody's best interest to acknowledge Hitchcock every single morning and to say hello to him. If that happened, Hitchcock might be calm enough that nothing would go wrong that day. Apparently he doesn't want to be forgotten, and of course the sentiment is certainly understandable. We like to be assured that Hitchcock and his creations will not be forgotten. However, what will he make of a new attraction in this structure? Well, time will tell. Although there is rumor that in the new land that they are currently working on, there's going to be a tribute to the Universal monsters.
Here's hoping.
So I'm really hoping Hitchcock is there.
Was it Epic Universal?
Epic Universal.
Or something to that?
Yeah.
Epic something. But looking forward to that.
Yeah, I can't wait till it opens.
So hopefully it'll have that monster area. It's supposed to have a Nintendo area.
A Nintendo area. It's supposed to have another Harry Potter area that I think that they're taking from from Fantastical Beasts.
Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. I'll be really curious, and possibly might have the Ministry of Magic there. Yeah.
It'd be cool. Time will tell.
Yep. All right. So the immediate neighbor, Universal Islands of Adventure, is said to have a spirit of a different nature. Now this one, parents, keep an eye on your little ones.
This is.
This one's eerie. It takes the form of a little girl, and we say it because we don't really know what it is. This child likes to get children alone and give them a small black box as a gift. She does this in such a way that so that the parents of her targets are unaware of this gift. Some believe that this little girl may be a demon of some undefined nefarious goal associated with that black box. So if you see a little girl attempting to coerce your child into going with her, make sure you step in and keep your little one close. There are other spirits that linger on the grounds of Universal Studios and Universal Islands of Adventure. There's a story of a worker who fell to his death during the construction of Kong. For years after the attraction opened, he could be seen throughout the space, including as an extra passenger on the trams after they were empty. When staff members would go to find the man, the tram would be empty. It wasn't a simple trick of the eye either. The security monitors for the attraction would catch the man well before he would abruptly disappear. It seems he may have eventually found some peace, as there hasn't been any recent sightings of the man for some time now. We're discussing the demon.
Yes.
We knew that would stir a few folks up.
Demons? Yee.
Demons as a child?
No. Nah.
No.
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 Nope.
Nada.
No.
Little black boxes, that's ominous.
Yes.
Alright, so now we're going to jump over to the other Universal out in California, which Chris and I have not been to, but it's on our list. So
Yep.
when we go out for Disneyland, we're going to catch that one.
Yep. We'll do our best to at least.
Because, well, we're going to be in the area.
Yes. But yes, so, and this is going to be our last stop for tonight.
Yep.
Now, as we said, if you didn't hear about your favorite theme park tonight, we are going to be doing Theme Parks Part 2 in 2 weeks.
Yes, so
Now-
come back for that.
Now, with that said, if there's something that you didn't hear about tonight, if you know that there's a ghost story at a theme park, go ahead and drop it, that we didn't talk about tonight at least, go ahead and drop it in the chat, because then we will do a little digging and we still have time to maybe organize our part 2 to maybe weave it in if we can find the material for it. So,
Yep.
just want to go ahead and put that out there, because I know this is such a fun subject.
It is.
That that I know, and people do talk about this kind of stuff. These people that don't work for the theme parks.
Mhm.
But so if you have one of your favorite ones that you know, like, hey, isn't this attraction haunted at this park?
Mhm.
Drop it in the chat. We'll be happy to
So
go
we
ahead
can do a
and
little digging.
do a little digging for it. So. No other questions, but yes. And yes,
Send them.
Trina is enjoying a martini tonight, a
I'm
French
a little
martini.
jealous. I would love a chocolate martini or a lemon drop right now.
Mm.
Because that would put me under and I'd sleep so nicely tonight.
We could have made a lemon drop, couldn't we? Maybe?
I don't know. I'd have to go look at our ingredients.
Anyways, alright, so yes, Universal Hollywood, our last stop for tonight. Now, of course, as we've already mentioned, Orlando doesn't have a monopoly on the Universal parks, and Universal Hollywood Studio has some stories of its own, including a tale about the Phantom of Stage 28. While positive identification of the specter remained elusive, many think that it might be that of Lon Chaney. Chaney was the star of many of Universal's original monster movies, the movies that literally made the studio what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Universal Monsters is like...
Is their core.
It's their core. It was, for so many years, it's what kept them afloat. It's what made them the studio that they are today. And Lon Chaney was key to that.
Because he played them all.
Yep. Now, Stage 28 was built for his most famous movie, which was The Phantom of the Opera, featuring a full-size remake of the Parisian Theater from the movie, from the picture. Years since, the set had remained for decades, with Universal staffers all saying that a black-cloaked stranger had been witnessed hiding within the balconies of the theater. The reports happened so often that security guards even stopped searching the soundstage when those reports came in. Unfortunately, sightings of the Phantom ended when the stage was demolished in 2016 to make room for an expansion to the theme park. To their credit, Universal did preserve the beautiful Parisian theater set in storage, but the stage that played host to so many remarkable films has passed on into the history books. We'll see if they ever get around to reassembling the Parisian theater. And
if they do the Monsterland and Epic Universal, that would be a perfect place.
It'd be a great place for it. And who knows, maybe
maybe Lon will come visit.
Yeah, maybe our Phantom will hitch a ride with it.
One of my favorite novels.
Yeah.
And movies and plays.
So one final story for this evening, and again also from Universal Hollywood. Now, in late summer 2015, longtime Universal Studios employee John Murdy was tasked with bringing back Halloween Horror Nights to Hollywood after a 5-year hiatus. Now, I don't know why you would put Halloween Horror Nights on hiatus. I mean, speaking for myself, I probably should have researched that before I said something.
I don't care. Bring it on. Bring it back.
Anyways, it is back though.
Yes.
Well, and we seriously need to get down and check it out one time. Like go in like late September. Mm-hmm. Usually the Halloween Horror Nights they operate like for about
mid-September through October.
Through October.
So obviously October we can't do, but
yes.
mid-September we could.
Yep. So we'll have to see if we can get around to that someday. We could pop down to Orlando for it. But anyways, as the creative director responsible for the grand vision of the attraction, Murdy was scouting the backlot for areas that could be included as part of the Terror Tram experience. Accompanying him was a member of his team, Casey. Late in the evening, after all the other staff had called it a night, Murdy and Casey were the only people in that portion of the backlot, which is why Murdy was surprised when he heard this diabolical giggling, which stopped almost as quickly as it began. Murdy bolted, leaving a confused Casey behind. While Casey had also heard the noise, he was inclined to dismiss it as nothing more than a harmless fluke of their surroundings. Casey cajoled Murdy to come back and investigate whatever it was that could have made the sound, and Murdy sheepishly returned to Casey's side. It was only moments later, though, when the disembodied giggling started again, this time much closer than before. Murdy bolted again, and this time Casey lost what little was left of his own nerves and was hot on Murdy's heels. By the next day, the story about Murdy's and Casey encountering a ghost in the backlot was making the rounds among fellow Horror Nights and Universal staff. Most passed it off as a security guard. Many laughed at the notion that Murdy, a lifelong horror fan who had begun building home haunts as a small child, could actually be frightened by something like diabolical giggling.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. But not everyone dismissed the possibility that the giggling was of supernatural origin. Other employees began confiding of their own unusual experiences on the Universal backlot. One that stuck out to Murdy was the sighting of a man wandering in the area near the Psycho House, wearing a vintage aerial outfit, complete with a leather helmet and jacket. According to what he heard, a number of employees reported seeing a similarly dressed man over a period of years. The sightings were in the same area where Murdy and Casey heard the giggling. Murdy dived into the Universal archives, searching for any films that may have had cast members as pilots. After hours of research, Murdy came across an answer, but it was not in the film and script collection. Murdy's answer was in a headline story of the LA Times from March 17, 1915, the opening weekend of Universal Studios. To celebrate the opening weekend of Universal City, studio chief Carl Laemmle orchestrated a spectacle to kick off what the Times hailed as the greatest motion picture city in the world. Thousands of guests descended upon Universal, arriving from every corner of the country. Excuse me. As they walked through the studio gates, gorgeous young ladies showered flowers on the guests, while mounted cowboys and Indians fired shots into the air and whooped war cries. The studio's directors, cast, and crew demonstrated film shoots on a variety of film sets, and for the first time, the famous simulated flood scene had hundreds of thousands of gallons of water washed through the backlot. According to the LA Times, on the first day of the momentous weekend, only 1 or 2 minor accidents occurred, and those were from children who received minor injuries after running under horses.
Oops.
Safety back then just wasn't quite what it is today.
They don't have their children harnesses we have today.
Anyways, so the next day, the planned showstopper would be a simulated aerial battle above the heads of the crowd. Universal had enlisted Frank Stitz, a pilot whose own high-flying bravado was already known to the residents of LA. Stitz regularly performed aerial stunts in Venice Beach and other coastal communities, and was also the chief instructor of the Griffith Aviator Park, which had opened 3 years earlier. For the stunt, Stitz would fly his biplane over an enemy plane and drop a payload of explosives that would destroy his enemy. The bomb was in fact an inert bundle of cloth, and the unpiloted enemy plane strung along a zip line was loaded with a primed explosive. The scheduled battle was postponed through the day due to uncooperative winds, and perhaps due to an extra cautious Frank Stitz. That very morning, Stitz learned that his friend, the leading aviator Lincoln Beachley, was killed while performing a stunt in the San Francisco Bay. The LA Times speculated that Stitz was faced with the challenge of taking Beachley's place as the world's greatest aviator. Everything went according to script until the explosives went off. Before dropping the payload, Stitz circled 3 or 4 times above the thousands of awestruck Universal visitors for effect. Spotting his cue from the director, Stitz cruised back around on his path towards the dummy plane, and as scripted, dropped the payload, and the dummy plane was blasted into shrapnel. This was also when everything went horribly wrong. To those on the ground, it appeared that immediately after the unmanned plane exploded, Stitz lost control of his own plane. That it is not known if he was tossed from his seat or if he jumped, hoping for safety, but when the plane was 60 feet from the ground, Stitz plummeted to the feet of the crowd. Moments later, the plane crashed into a patch of trees 50 feet away. Stitz was dead on impact. The LA Times had reported that his spinal column was driven into his skull. I'd say ow, but you're not even going to feel that. Immediately after the accident, Carl Laemmle himself announced that all further festivities would be canceled, and the crowds made their way home. Besides reports of the accident that hit the news in the days that followed, Frank Stitz's name disappeared from the papers. Perhaps all that Stitz wanted was acknowledgement, which is why his spirit still lingers on the backlot. After learning about Frank Stitz and his dreadful fate, John Murday said that with the help of a mannequin, he created an effigy of the doomed pilot and let him know that he would not be forgotten. Now, if you do sometimes ride the Universal Backlot Tour, you may spot this mannequin dressed up as a pilot along the route. Murday claims that since then the sightings of a lone man in an aerial outfit have stopped, and he hasn't heard the giggling since. In keeping with the times, the ghost of Frank Stitz now has his own Facebook page, and some Universal employees have taken to dressing up as his corpse to frighten visitors to the studio's annual Halloween attraction. So, if you're on the backlot and happen to see a man walking around dressed as an aviator, it's probably a live human wearing a costume. Probably.
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
So, Trina asked Kings Island in Ohio. Yes, that is on the list for the next show. So, we will be covering that one.
Story of Tram Girl and Tower Johnny.
Yep.
Ring a bell?
Rings the bell.
All right. You will have that in 2 weeks' time, Trina. Awesome. And yeah, if anybody else has anything, don't hesitate to drop it in the chat, or even just shoot us a note later on. We check our messages regularly, whether it's email or Facebook Messenger and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
So, is Halloween year-round at Haunts of Richmond headquarters? Absolutely.
Yep. So we always have spooky stuff out. As a matter of fact, we have
the skeletons are currently sitting at the table, waiting to go outside, but we have to finish sanding and painting outside.
Yep. So, but yeah, there's our four skeletons are having their team meeting at the dining room table,
Yep.
which is where they usually are if they're not outside putting on a show.
Yeah. Una, get back here. Una likes hanging over the banister.
Yeah.
Scaring us half to death.
Yep. And the stuff that you see up behind us
That's
here,
all year round.
That's all year round, and it's not just staged, not only staged for this. We got stuff like this all over the house.
I have a Jack and Sally banner that hangs in the dining room that says Halloween 365.
Yep.
Every day.
Every day.
Yeah. So.
Cat team meeting planning world domination, of course. Yeah.
They really need to take over the world right now.
If they could ever stop fighting with each other.
Original Spice, nice one, Alex.
Yes.
She's the OG Spice.
Oh, yes, she is. And yeah, Lulu is already up in bed, waiting to go to bed. She is anything but Spice. She is
the wise one.
She's chill.
She is Lulu the Grey.
But yeah, so it's been a busy couple of weeks, and yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Love this episode, and we're looking forward to the next one in 2 weeks already.
So just so you all know how busy I've been, I have scripts written through middle of July.
Yep, getting ahead of things because
We got a long vacation in there, and we're gonna have to adjust the schedule right before the vacation, because one of our shows would be while we're on vacation, and while we are in, can't guarantee we'll have
reception. Yeah, unlike when we've done a few shows from up in New York.
Yeah.
But this is not a New York vacation, and we're not going to necessarily have that ability to do so. So there will be a little shuffling around of schedules sometime this summer, but we are going to generally continue to do the shows every couple of weeks. So yeah, 2 weeks we got Haunted Amusements Part 2, and then 4 weeks from now we have Haunted Michigan, because why not? Michigan has a lot of interesting ghost stories.
It does, so I decided I was going to jump on it.
Yeah, we when we started doing these over 2 years ago now, we started, we picked a state, I forget, we've done like Haunted Florida, we've done Haunted Kentucky, we've done a few things like Hawaii.
Yeah.
I think it was after we did the Hawaii one.
I decided I was going to do each state at some point.
And so
I started the research, and then we got sidetracked, and we started doing other themes, and I'm like, you know what, let's go back and do another state.
Yep, so Michigan is on the list.
And since people do like to go to Michigan to be on the lake during the summer, we decided that was a good time.
Yep, yeah, it will be basically right before Memorial Day, so good timing on that front. Hard at work on these. How much have these video streams increased your paranormal know-how? I'd say substantially. Mm-hmm. Some of the stories, of course, we don't memorize all of them. We can't memorize all of them. But there have been a few, here and there along the way that just stick with you because they're such fascinating stories.
Yeah, and one of them we're actually going to be doing when we do haunted libraries, which is coming up as well during the summer. And there was a point where I got to a haunted library in Dublin, and I went, did we tell this one already? And Chris is like, I'm not familiar with it. I'm like, I know I've put this in a script somewhere. And sure enough, I had. It was in my Ireland's Part 3. We just hadn't actually told the story yet. Yeah. But it was in the script. And so I'm like, well, copy and paste, and we'll put it in this one. Yeah. But yeah, that's the point I get to where I'm like, I told this one. So.
I'm sure that one day, somehow, some way, we're going to have one slip through the cracks, and we're going to repeat a story that we've done previously. But now we're at over 60 episodes at this point.
Yeah. And
with each episode running between about an hour and a half, we're coming up on 70 to 80 hours of material, and it just keeps growing.
It keeps growing. I have a lot of scripts that I've started that I haven't finished. So.
Yep.
I just found a whole bunch of research for medieval ghosts, medieval hauntings.
That'll be fun.
So
that's one thing that so many people ask about. It's like, why are all the ghosts from the Victorian era? Well, they're not. I mean, there are a lot of ghost stories from the Victorian era.
Because they were fascinated with them.
Yes.
But they're not all from them.
Yep.
So
yep.
It was just talked about a lot.
Mm-hmm. So, we like to mix it up.
Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting ones that are going to be coming up that are percolating.
Yep. And we just, even though we got those scripts all written up through, probably midsummer at this point.
I think July 18th is the last one I got.
We do love to get more suggestions for stories. If you got something that you want us to possibly research and do for a topic, we're happy to hear from you because, we're going to keep doing these shows past midsummer this year, so we're going to keep them going. There's going to be a lot more to come, and
and more of them are making it onto the YouTube page.
I think I've only got 6 or 7 up there now, but it
takes a while to do the transition.
Yep, it does take quite a while. So,
but eventually, they'll all get there.
I work on it when I have a few minutes, which isn't
Hasn't
very
been the
often,
last week.
which hasn't been very often. It hasn't been the last week. It's probably not going to be this week.
Yeah.
But I'll work on throwing a few more up there as I get to do so. And don't forget, if you haven't signed up, we do have that email newsletter now. So if you go to our website, hauntsofrichmond.com, there's actually a tab up at the top for newsletter. Just click on that. It gives you a very short sign-up form. Put your name and email address, and you will be signed up, and you will start getting our newsletter.
Yep. Which will have a ghost story in it every single time.
Yep. We sent out our first one just a little over a week ago, and so.
And Hot in Key West, we still have some slots available that has to be signed up for by July, because at that point in time we do need to release the hotel rooms that have not been reserved.
Yep.
So that is the deadline. If you want to come with us, you got to do it by July.
Yeah. But that is going to be a fun trip. Already looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And we got 3 other trips between now and then. So
Busy summer.
New York twice.
New York twice.
Yeah. So, anyways, with that, we're starting to ramble, starting to digress a little bit, but that's what we do. That's how we roll.
All right, we'll see you all in 2 weeks. Have a good night.
Yep, y'all have a good one. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.